Hey everybody, Sean Powers here. Now, yesterday I did a video talking about Duck DNS, and one of the commenters, Samples and Tests, actually asked me how I went about doing my own dynamic DNS. And I'll be honest, the way that I did it myself is not worth repeating. It was kludgy, it didn't work really well. I used DNS mask, and I just sort of like used bash scripts to concoct a config file, and then I would restart the service. So it was not a great way to go about it. But part of that discussion was how I would detect my public IP address when it changes, and there's a couple ways to go about it. The easiest way is to use somebody else's service to do it. So let's actually go to the command line. I'll show you a couple ways that you can do it, and then I'll show you how I wrote my own. And that's actually still a very useful tool. You can use mine or, but I'll show you how I wrote it just using a simple one-liner PHP. It's actually a little longer than one line because I did some other stuff, but let's go to the command line and check it out. Okay, so I'm here. I'm just logged into a couple different computers, but this is a cloud VPS that I have. And basically, if you're on the command line, using something like curl is a really easy way to get your IP address. And you can say curl, and one of the free sites out there, again, it's not self-hosted, but one of the free sites out there is ifconfig.me. So if you say curl ifconfig.me, and that's a domain name, ifconfig.me, and press enter, it will return your IP address. And you'll notice that it didn't even do a carriage return afterwards. The nice thing about that is you could then redirect that into a script. So let me clear the screen. I don't think I have anything in here. No, so we could do that command. So curl ifconfig.me and put it into ip.txt. And if we look, now inside that file is just the IP address. So you could use that in a script. You could pull that information and you would have your external IP address. Now, the way it does it is when it connects to the remote server says, okay, what IP address are you coming from? And then it returns that information to you. Now, I did that myself using PHP because I really generally like to host my own things, because what if this ifconfig.me site goes down, or they start inserting ads in there and it messes up my script. So what I did is I wrote my own. So here I am on my Caddy server at my data center, and this is just a single PHP file. So let's look at it, and I'll kind of explain what's going on here. So this is just called index.php so that it loads when somebody hits this website. And I'll show you the website in just a second. But it starts, this is how PHP files start. And so it says even if you don't understand PHP, this should make sense as we walk through it. It says if the server variable HTTP X forwarded for is not empty, meaning if there is a variable called HTTP X forwarded for, then return the IP address of what IP it was forwarded for. Otherwise, just return remote address. Now, 99% of the time, you could just have this line as PHP and just make it a one-liner, because it will return the user's address, the remote user. Like when we are using curl and we reach out, it's going to return what our user address is as the server sees it, which is going to be our public IP address. This logic I put in here in case I put this file behind a reverse proxy, because if you put it behind a reverse proxy, a lot of times what will happen is it will return the address of the reverse proxy because the server only sees the reverse proxy. Okay, so that's why this logic is in here. If this server happens to be behind a reverse proxy like Nginx or Caddy, then it will still return the client's IP address, because it's going to test and say, okay, if this is set, which is set when it's a reverse proxy, then I know to actually send the client's IP instead of the remote address, which is just going to be the proxy, the reverse proxy's IP. Hopefully that makes sense. But like I said, 99% of the time, you can just use this line and it's going to be fine. But if you do this and you set it up, and so let's get out of here, and I've set that up on my Caddy server. And let's we'll go back here to my cloud VPS. If I were to do the same thing, but to my IP address, so curl And the domain that I used is ip.snar.co. You've probably seen snar.co. I use that as my URL shortener domain. So snar.co is one that I own. And I just put the subdomain here, ip.snar.co. And if we curl that, it's going to do the exact same thing that ifconfig.me did, right? Except I'm hosting it. Now you're welcome to use mine. It's not like it uses a lot of my bandwidth or anything, but this is the same IP address that the other one returned. In fact, we can look at that. Do the same thing here, and sure enough, there's that same IP address right there. So that is how we can do it, and it doesn't just work on. I mean, just so you can tell that it's actually a a script and not just me stacking the deck here. Kermit is my server in Austria, so this is going to be an Austrian IP. And if we do curl ip.snar.co, we're going to get the IP address returned just like that. Okay, so let's hit enter. We'll do curl ifconfig.me. Same thing. We got the same IP address back. So it's really, really easy to do that aspect of the solution, you know. So to answer the user samples and tests, that's how I go about doing it. I just use PHP to return what IP address the server sees when somebody connects. Again, it's pretty simple. And if you don't want to do the logic to, like, in case it happens to be a reverse proxy in front of it, you can just use that one-liner. I'll actually paste that code from that index.php that I created. I'll paste that in the description of this video in case you want to try to do one on your own. All you would need is a web server that is running with PHP, so a LAMP stack, if you will. Well, you don't need the MySQL part of the LAMP stack. So just, yeah, a server can be Apache, Nginx, Caddy, anything as long as you have PHP running. And when you query that, it should return the IP address. And then you can use that inside other scripts because since it just returns the raw IP address, you can like load a variable in Bash with that by executing curl, putting that into a variable, and then you can use your public IP in whatever script that you happen to be using. And I'll put a link to the Bash scripting playlist that we have at the end of this video, which is probably on the screen right now. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this. Learn everything, do what you love, and most importantly, be kind. I will see you at the next video.